I'm a bit surprised as I not only found out, dear audience, that our LinkedIn is looping again. And as we would love to talk about human in the loop, or in the sense of artificial intelligence, we see that LinkedIn tries to be very analog these days and does some circling around, running around in circles. So feel free to switch to one of our other Facebook channels as they are agile. You can discuss with us, and we invite you to use the opportunity to have a chit chat with the expert Michael Wu or us in that coming up hour. Welcome, Michael. Fantastic to have you again here on the screen.
Or
Thank
YouTube,
you.
by
My
the way,
pleasure.
or Twitter, not only Facebook.
Yeah, well, I never observed that there are people in Twitter direct in communication. So I'm welcoming you as well onto Twitter. If you are,
X now.
sorry, no longer there are birds. It is X. Yeah, exactly. For whatever an X is good, because an X to me means ish, ish, go off. So I'm an old-fashioned guy in that attitude, and this is how I approach from time to time all these things which have happened since November 22. And we are happy that you are with us. And I'm grateful that Michael found the time to be our guest for a third time, as he is the master of knowledge and had done a very nice performance, which we shared with you in our intro, where he gave an 1 hour lecturing on the way to go for artificial intelligence. He told you everything about what is the background into ChatGPT and other large language learning models or smaller ones, but to describe how much effort is behind this is one of the very interesting things people, I guess, often underestimate if they are in the simple consumer approach. So, Michael, it would be a fantastic starting point if, to those which are not aware what for a smart mind we could win for a third time, that you introduce yourself, please, and tell us a bit about Pros and what you do and how you try to help organizations to outperform with the forward-looking smart AI opportunities to get their personal benefit out of your work. Michael.
Sure. Well, I have to say, I'm usually not very big with intro, so I think that
Time to blush now.
if you if you like what I said, you look me up, right? But very short intro. I'm the chief AI strategist at Pros, and before that, I've been a chief scientist at Silicon Valley for 10 years or so, and then doing PhD studying the human brain using machine learning. So using human intelligence to study machine intelligence, and then using machine intelligence to study human intelligence, kind of go all the way full circle. A little bit about Pros. So Pros is a company that use AI to optimize profit for you. I think every company in this environment, this very crazy year that we had, or crazy few years that we had, since the pandemic, the war, and all the geopolitical conflicts and everything, it's been a crazy few years. So I think every company is trying to get to profitability, with interest hike and everything. So yeah, I think we are the company that help you optimize this profitability using all the AI technology out there today. So
That's fantastic. And talking about our past, we met when you were a speaker on the in the role of having a role in lithium, and then on the CeBIT, I was having the pleasure to listen to you, and from that moment, I haven't lost pace to track and follow what you are doing, and that is interesting and thrilling. And if you just give us a tidbit of where would you suggest to go for to make a personal benefit and a profitability benefit for an organization with what AI is in the moment delivering, because a lot of people get a certain moment of experience when they ask for the next lottery numbers in ChatGPT and are disappointed to a certain amount. How come?
Well, ChatGPT doesn't know anything about the future, right? So it's not a
predictive. It's not a predictive AI.
Yeah, it's pre-trained, right? It's the GPT in ChatGPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, right? And transformer is just a very specific kind of neural network, and generative meaning that you could sample from it, and that's how a kind of model called generative model. And the fact that it is pre-trained means that it can only know about things in the past, right? Because it can't. It cannot actually know about the future, at least not by itself, not alone. I think through engineering and I would say clever kind of use of data information, you can actually engineer a system where it could seem like it's telling you about the future, right? Using this retrieval augmented generation approach, right? You're using search, information retrieval mechanism to search the current web, right, to tell you about what exists right now, or even what people have said about the future, and then you give those results to ChatGPT and simply ask ChatGPT to kind of summarize it for you, right? So that's what we call retrieval augmented generation. Right? You're using information retrieval to augment this generation. So by itself, GPT or ChatGPT cannot tell you about the future, but using this other mechanism together, other search mechanism, it may seem like it's able to tell you the future, but ChatGPT is actually not doing that. It's the search that's doing that. The information retrieval that's doing that. So, yeah.
And we have to go to the part fast where we earn money with the right lottery numbers and how we can get the right predictive information on how a soccer game will have an outcome, or which boxer will win in the ring, or to put it in a more serious way, as managers are trying to understand it, and not only technicians, so normal people like Marshall, myself. Thomas is more of the techie already, but you are the mind behind a lot of extra work and smartness. So how could we get the positive experience? How is AI delivering here if it's not ChatGPT, which is the pre-trained one and looking into the history and smart and nice, but not predictive? What is the way to go for predictions? What you give us as guidance, or what is your tip for getting rich?
Well, I think there's no silver bullet to getting rich, I would say. I think that one thing that everyone can leverage with AI is to actually to use it to help you be more productive, right? I think being more productive is always good for personal wealth. And so I know some of the, I would say, really famous rich people, right? It's they say like it's maybe only 1% genius and 99% perspiration. It's just hard work, right? Yeah. So it's but if you can be more productive, I think that I can pretty much guarantee that if you can be more productive than all your surrounding, all the people around you, right? You will be a lot wealthier than them.
I embrace the aspect that you are still in sweat and honest work and not in bank robbery and other tricky stuff. And this is really, really cool. So the honest advice, number one, we can take out of this is it makes you more productive, and it helps you do your work smarter.
That's right.
Some of the user issues we observe were, as you mentioned also in your fantastic talk, were the lack of accuracy, and this seems to be a concern to users. And also, cyber security and copyright issues.
Yeah.
What is your take on that one, especially when I remember right, you gave the advice that it is an interesting opportunity to write books, draw pictures, but you probably have not the copyright on those any longer.
That's right. I think this is a little bit of a still unknown at the point, because the court has not give a very precise definition of what is actually copyrightable right now. We know for sure that if you simply use any of these generative AI to generate anything without kind of any human input, then it's definitely not copyrightable, right? You could like the storybook that what's her name? I think Chris Kashnova, I think that's her name. So she created this storybook, and then with all the images are generated from Midjourney, but none of those images are copyrightable, because she did not actually generate those, right? And the court basically says that you can copyright all the prompt that you wrote to that you use to generate those images, because you wrote that, right? But the images are generated by this generative AI Midjourney, which you have no idea what it's actually doing. So you cannot copyright those, right? And after you get those images, the arrangement of those art in a book or whatever, those are your work. So you can copyright those, but not the image itself, right? So I think there's a sort of a demarcation of how much of the work did you as a person actually do, right? I think that's in some area it may be difficult to kind of separate those, and that's kind of the unknown, the gray area right now. I think that the court hasn't really have a precise way to do this, and I think they're just saying that it has to have some human, I would say some human genius in there, right? It's not
human in the loop. I love it.
Yeah,
I promise.
Well, the AI is like the coffee grinder, but you still need a talented barista to pull you a good shot of espresso.
Yeah, to some extent, yeah. So I would say that there are certainly a lot of ways that this generative AI can make our life a lot more productive. You could write code for us. You could write, but if it's something that's, I would say, a core IP, I would just say that it's better that you stay away from that for the time being, right? Because you don't want your core IP lose your copyright, at least at the current environment, right? Maybe in the future that the legal landscape would change. I don't know. I think legal is generally very slow to catch up with these kind of things. Yeah.
Talking about IP and copyright.
Actually, the other one you were talking about. Yeah.
Do you happen to know the TOC that
what?
That Midjourney sorry that Midjourney uses? So because
the what?
Let's say Midjourney, because
what did
they might be quite similar to what Lensa did, right? So Lensa said pretty clearly, so the pictures that you upload that are yours, but whatever we make out of them is not. So that might be pretty much the same also with Midjourney.
Yeah, I mean, you could use it to generate images, right? So I mean, you could use them, but it doesn't mean that you copyright.
Right. That you own them.
It is not protected. It's not your proprietary. You could generate this image, but anyone could generate that image. Those images.
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if those companies keep the right to themselves of what the output is of the system.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I don't know what they're. I haven't actually looked at who. I mean, it would seem like why would they? How could they even own those things? I mean, because if it's out there, it's generated. And the same thing applies, right? In that case, they did not even write the prompt, right? The user wrote the prompt to generate, right? So they wrote the code, but they don't necessarily know what the code is actually doing.
And what they did use to generate it is probably also not owned by them, but by someone else.
It's a combination of user input, right? So user generated the prompt, and then they
like to steal a question, or better, lend it from my friend Marshall.
Surprisingly, you have a question.
I could have raised my hand, but in my role, I'm loving to place questions and have other people which are smarter than me to answer them. Such as Marshall is a very cool observer of science fiction stories, and he is struck and surprised by the actors and authors strike. So some of his most favorite series will not be continued on time. And so he might get out of, he's weeping already, he might get out of material to watch and to enjoy. So I think this is a very serious observation. I recall Klaus-Peter Gensch, a professor on AI in Germany, who made a remark already 4 years ago when he said that there were some bits and pieces, books of a certain site, scripts for films, and even episodes John Rowling's have not given her right to, and fan productions created by artificial intelligence at that time. So coming back to the author strike and the actor strike, is there an honest and real concern one has to travel and think about, such as I recall that from the Death Star, some scenes were reproduced with artificial CGI, and also there is a certain technology, such as the avatars from the ABBA song performings, which are on stage, and they get their royalties after they have done all that creativity. But how is the situation from your perspective, being an expert on also if it's ethical correct, legally correct?
Well, I'm not a legal expert. I'm an expert in AI. So, yeah. So I would say that it definitely is a concern that we should look into, right? I mean, so these are, I would say, some of the unintended consequences, right? I mean, the people who built AI, right? It's not their job to think about the societal impact and so on, right? To when they're developing it, right? Maybe after they develop it, they have to think about it. But I think that's similar with the case with even like social media. Like when social media was developed, right? There are lots of unintended consequences, and I think it's good that today people are raising these type of concerns, right? People are raising these concerns, and so that the scientists, the scientific community can address them early rather than later, rather than being too late, right? I mean, I think had we known, social media have such a, it has positive impact for sure, but it also have a lot of negative impact as well, right? I mean, on society, polarizing the society and everything, and I would say like it creates a false image in children's and their development. So there are lots of negative impact as well, right? But that wasn't the intent of the people creating a social network, right? It was just a kind of unintended consequences. Then so I think these things are definitely worth pondering about, and we need to think about how can we I would say what process need to be put in place to kind of I would say safeguard the people who are impacted to some extent, right? I mean, I think technology will progress, right? But it will be disruptive if it happened too quickly, right? So I think that's and traditionally, I think technology evolution don't happen this fast, right? So I think this was a very dramatic kind of change, right? So it created a lot of disruption very quickly before people could learn to adopt, right? I mean, I think that in the ideal world, right, when the technology was introduced, right, people actually learn to use it. They learn to leverage it in a way that's safe. I would say not damaging to themselves, not damaging to other around them, not damaging to the society, right? So people learn to use it the so-called right way, right? And then they would make themselves more productive, right? It's just think of this, I think about a car, right? When the car was invented, right, people learn how to drive. People, maybe if the car all of a sudden kind of, spread to the entire world, right, then, it would be pretty crazy. It would be running over horses and people and everything. So before there's, I would say, traffic laws and people driving on the same side of the street crashing into each other, right? It would be crazy, right? But I think this technology, a vehicle, a car, was introduced kind of slow enough so that I would say the society can learn to cope with it, to create like, okay, I know you should drive on, depending on which country you're from, right? Drive on the right side of the street. So there are these kind of conventions, right? These kind of common knowledge of how things should work. So those are developed. People learn those. People learn how to drive safely. They don't speed. They don't. So there's a lot that need to be learned from the human side as well, right? So we need to learn to use this safely and productively, and when things happen too quickly, we don't have the chance to do that, right? So inadvertently, sometimes to make ourselves very productive, we may end up hurting other people, right? For example, like if you invented a car and some people say, hey, I just want to go to the hospital really quickly right now to see, I don't know, my baby is coming, right? So he's just trying to get to his hospital, but he ran over a bunch of people on the way. He said, I just gonna, so that's crazy, right? You can't do that, right? So he had to know how to use that in a way that doesn't harm other people. Right.
Similarly, the critics, as well as you just mentioned, a lot of little points in the puzzle about that there were some criticism. We are doing it too fast. We're with the speed of a rocket developing in the last 3 to 6 months, and we are too fast that frameworks, boundaries, or even, as we said, that legal is always very slow.
Yeah. Legal and safety, right? Because people may not know the implication on other people, right? So I mean, you could say that if cars were invented too quickly, right, people may just run over other people or other, cattle or other like horses and things like that, right? To get to where they're at. I just want to get to there quickly, But hey, the same thing happened today, right? I mean, these film production company, they just say, hey, I'm just trying to make these films faster, without having to cut costs or whatever, right? But it's hurting other people, right? It's hurting other people.
Yeah, they're not accidentally. They're not accidentally screwing the writers. They're doing it with intent.
Yeah,
in my opinion. I'm not a labor negotiator.
Okay, well, that part hasn't anything to do with AI or this stuff. So this has been their business model before generative services have been that widespread. So the putting that aside, so if law is slow, if the possibility of making expensive mistakes also for the company is quite high, or the risk is quite high, what do you think that customers, means the companies of AI services that are usually somewhere else in the cloud or in another cloud even, can do and should do in order to help themselves and their employees to minimize these risks? So risks of exposing AI, exposing IP, exposing sensitive data that is within their own databases to some other service that may or may not use it for nefarious or not so nefarious purposes. So how do businesses should set up their infrastructure to avoid this? What can they do?
Well, I mean, there are many things they could do, right? I mean, they could just prevent certain uses in certain use cases, right? For example, like you could use it, like a lot of people right now with GPT-4, right? It has pretty amazing coding capability. You could write code for you, and it's pretty, and people are using it productively to write code that's not, I would say, the core IP, right? For example, you want to write tests, generate test cases, generate test data. Those are good use cases because those are not part of your core IP, right? Any, I would say, fresh out of college, computer scientists could write these test cases. So you don't really care if it's been stolen, right? Or if someone replicate that, it's fine. It's not your core IP, right? So I think in that respect, you could limit what it can be used on. Right? I think so. So there's certainly. So I think this is actually quite. I would think it's good. It's a good framework to think about. Right? Limit the use case, right, rather than limit the technology. So you don't want to say like I want to ban gun. Right? A gun is very dangerous, but you want to limit the use case. You can't use a gun to rob a bank. You can use a gun to protect yourself, right? So that's you are limiting the use cases of certain technology, but not limiting the technology itself, right? So the technology it's not inherently good or bad, right? It's just the fact that the people think it's bad because it's introduced too quickly, so it created disruption. But
bad things are done with it. And bad things are done with it.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's let's get away from coding. Even for test cases, you probably need to input core IP in order to have the system generate a test case or a test. So, but
you don't have to review that. You could say like this is you call this function. But then that function is a black box. You don't know that. Like it's
let's look at simpler things like that might apply to pros as well, actually. So if you are doing, let's say, personalized offers, have the famous mail that everybody and their dog now touts as one of their core services with generative AI. So in order to get this prompt, this mail personalized correctly or individualized even, you do not only need a good prompt. Well, you need a good prompt, but what does make it a good prompt? First, you need to address the person properly. There we have PII data that then goes out to some other system.
Yeah.
In order to tailor the offering, you need to have previous historic data about this person and probably also the cohort of this person. Another set of that's corporate sensitive data. You need to have pricing data of yourself, again, sensitive data. This is now corporate sensitive data. And you, of course, want to have a proper byline, means you give away your sensitive data, your personal data.
So Thomas, let me...
How to avoid that?
Yeah, so you're talking about a use case where the core functionality require this sensitivity data, right? But that's not always the case, right? Personalization by definition requires some personal information, individualized information, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to use it personalized. You could just increase productivity, for example, for make a process faster, easier, simpler, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't require any personalized or information PI or anything.
Yeah.
Right? So you're talking about a use case that's inherently requires that information. right?
Yeah,
So
there are plenty of them.
maybe that's not the domain that you should use generative AI for. I don't know. I'm saying that I'm not saying that yes or no, but I'm saying that maybe we should have some personalization. Maybe I would say an area that's a little bit gray, right? Maybe we need to put some kind of guardrails around it, right, to prevent misuse and all that. Right? But there are lots of other use cases of generative AI that does not require any PI at all or any personalization or whatsoever. Like not every so personalization happens to be, you actually framing up a kind of a dangerous case already, right? So, but that's
Which
not
is
only that's not the only personalization is not the only thing that AI could do for you, not the only thing that generative AI can do for you.
Yeah, just that this use case is one of the most widespread ones that gets touted by every business application vendor nowadays. So I have this type of functionality. You can increase your productivity by a factor of X or 10X by using our services like this. Have also
you know why? But you know why? That's the thing. Because ultimately, I think every business tries to improve customer experience of their customer, right?
Yeah, sure.
By providing, and one way to do that is to provide a personalized experience.
Yeah.
Like what could be better experience for customer than a personalized one, right? But the challenge with personalization is that it's very hard to scale, right? So traditionally,
need a machine.
Traditionally, what do companies do to create a personalized experience? They put people around, right? They say they put human around. It's okay. You have to know this person. If you've seen, this is a person that you work with. I mean, hotels or restaurants. So they put a lot of people around it. So as a result, that makes personalized experience very difficult to scale to a large scale. Right? Because you can't put people everywhere, right? Because
well, you could, but you don't want to.
Yeah, but I mean, well, it's costly for you.
Yeah,
right? It doesn't make sense economically for you to put people everywhere, right? So, but the thing and the reason that this personalization is such a talked about case is because with AI, with these generative AI, you can actually have almost like a human level intelligence without having an actual human, right? So you can actually that means you can actually scale that personalized experience to a much larger scale than ever possible before, right? Whereas before you can only do it with human, right? And it's very costly. So
don't you think that there's a common ground somewhere? I mean, both reaping efficiencies or harvesting efficiencies, reaping sounds a bit negative, harvesting efficiencies as well as providing providing an engagement that leads to a good experience, because you can't deliver an experience. Those are valid points for actually differentiating factors, especially the latter one. So this means the genie is using a Salesforce terminology here. The genie is already out of the box.
Yes.
The technology is there. Also, probably the technology to technically safeguard this is there. So do you see some common ground there?
There is. I mean, so I think that, but I think that's what AI is so kind of, I would say, disruptive today, because you can actually achieve efficiency without sacrificing quality, and you get both sides, right? Because previously you can either get efficiency and you sacrifice kind of this experience, right? You could be very highly efficient, right? And just people, things that are too efficient and too kind of, you lose that human touch, right? Basically, everything is just go, and it just rush you through the system, and you don't have that. You can't go at your own pace and everything. So it's kind of, you lose that human element, right? When you go too efficient. Right? On the other extreme is that you have very high human touch and good experience, right? But then you can't scale. You can't make that. You can do that fast, and you can't do that at scale, right? So with AI, you can actually get both, I would say, the personalization, the good experience, right, without sacrificing, scale and velocity, right? I think that's why this is such a big area, in terms of how company can leverage this, right? So I mean, there are many examples I think I could give, like, for example, like customer support, right? If you try to have maximize efficiency, right? Usually you end up trying to hang up the phone too fast, right? Because if they spend the whole day solving your problem, right? It's very good experience, but very bad in terms of efficiency, right? Because you can only help one person or two person or something like that, right? So, but but now, with AI, right, you could talk to like 20 people, 100 people all at once, right? It's simultaneous. It's concurrent, right? It doesn't need to do one after another, right? It doesn't have to do it in a sequential way as humans do, right? So there are huge efficiency gain and huge scalability gain, and without sacrificing personalization and experience at all, So I think that's why this is such a big area for a lot of companies. A lot of people are wanted to say that, personalization and everything because of that. Yeah.
Marshall tried to inject some words a couple of times, I think. No? Okay, then I exhibited a generative AI thingy, a hallucination.
And that happens.
It happens.
What is then the Mandalorian's way for doing solid AI? And where are the ethical frameworks and the guidelines, as we have not yet the existing laws, and this is no longer good.
I think, like as I said before, right, the legal is usually are slower, right? And they're slow for a reason. Is because they wanted to look at all the different, they want to be comprehensive and everything. So I think to some extent, like I feel like AI and automation can help legal do their job faster and better and more comprehensively, right? They instead of a lawyer or paralegal reviewing 100 documents, you could have AI reviewing 1 billion documents, right? Everything.
Let me interrupt for a second. So I recently came across a cartoon that had a bunch of politicians in front of a computer. The prompt was write me an ethical code to safeguard generative AI. You know what the response was?
No.
I'm not that stupid. Sorry about that. That just came to mind.
And the other one is that one lawyer utilized in a much too creative mode his artificial intelligence toy, such as inventing lawsuits and court cases. Not the right way.
So this is what I mean, right? So to use it in a generative fashion, right, to create these answer fact-based questions, you need to put guardrail around it. You need to put like kind of retrieval augmented generation. You need to put checks and to make sure that you're not creating things out of thin air or fabricating things. But like I said,
GPT, we need some honest stuff.
Yeah, but you can. What I'm saying is like lawyers can actually use generative AI in a way that doesn't actually kind of impact their kind of, I would say, the authenticity of these their what they say, right? They could simply tell me. You could say, okay, you could ask ChatGPT to help you summarize, these 1,000-page document or something, or maybe, okay, what is the main difference between these two sets of document or something like that, or help me, if I only have like 2 hours, help me. So it can be used in a way that to help them be more productive without I would sacrifice compromising, too much of the quality, right? I mean, yeah, if you try to use it in a way that's kind of, help me write a kind of statement or a brief or court case briefing, right? It could very easily create the whole thing, right? And that would be very bad, right? And I think and we all know that the lawyer gets fined and it was humiliated and it's not good, right? So you certainly don't want that. So,
but I honestly do not want to get abused in my rights, GDPR, and privacy, and train a vendor with my intellectual property and make him smarter without him paying me for giving him that extra knowledge.
Did you ever publish?
Sorry?
Did you ever publish anything?
Yeah.
When you're a bit late in the game. You already did.
Yeah, they already got it. Oops. ChatGPT already have everything that's publicly on the web.
Anything you've written before 2021 is in there.
After that distraction, where did you want to go? How do you want to sue them, and when do you want to sue them?
They can use it. It's no problem for me. Yeah, but
so
what is coming up next is that, like the authors, like the actors, there should be some fair trade-off, and I would like to be informed. So, for instance, put it in plain words, even that the activity last week around utilizing Zoom, where I'm a big fan and hardcore user of, was probably not to full extent right. That it came to the point then one has to question if they do it in an appropriate way. Makes me think, rethink, and gives me the British expression, I'm concerned about it.
Yes, I'm concerned about that too, for sure. And I really think that, there will be some technology come up that will be able to kind of track use cases, perhaps with the help of AI, right? I mean, so there is something called content ID, right? So anytime you uploaded a YouTube video that uses certain, music or certain, clips from some movie, whatever. So it's able to track to where that source comes from. If it's kind of used in the shorts, it's probably not very much to monetize. But if you use it in a substantial way, right, they actually get monetized, right? So it automatically tracks. So if anytime so you could, ChatGPT now has everything that you've written now in the past, it already has the knowledge of, right? So it would know that if any of these knowledge actually come up in one of their responses too, right? So they haven't actually do a good job, developing that technology. But I think in the future it might be developed in such that, okay, if anything that's created by, Ralph here, it's used in a question or to address any question, right? Maybe you automatically just get monetized. You don't even have to know, right, who used it or why you use it, right? You just get automatically monetized, right? So, and you could even, to some extent, like say, I don't want this knowledge being shared anyone kind of in this domain. I don't want to use it in military or something like that. In whatever, right? So in people, abuse of human rights or something like that. So I think they're a similar kind of technology as content ID that's developed, by Google and people on YouTube, will probably be developed for generative AI as well, right? Basically, any knowledge or any content that is being used, that's attributable to someone, right? That because they know, they have everything, right? They know where this knowledge comes from, right? And they should be somehow, rewarded in some I would say, appropriate way, right? So. Yeah, so maybe the answer involved like 3 persons kind of content, right? And then based on how much is a draw from each person, then these 3 persons get rewarded kind of in some fair proration.
boils down to regulation again and the term of appropriate, right? So what Sam Altman and whoever else is around there says, well, it's fair use, right?
Yeah, I think right now it's kind of anybody who finds, who use Google to find your writing, they could use it, they learn it, it's in their head, right? So they use it, but then you don't know how they can use it. But I think to some extent, like AI could help, right? I think the same thing. I think this is actually a very similar situation to the early days of Google, right? Google violates copyright left and right, but they developed this content ID, right? Basically, very robustly identify copyrighted content. And then
I would like to share a question from Alan with you, Michael, and the rest of us. He asked if you have seen implementations like Perplexity AI that do citations at all.
That's a good question.
Very good. Side remark before you answer that, Ralph, as a note, this question and probably a couple of other ones do not pop up in my LinkedIn stream so far. So you probably need to take real care right now because I can't.
Oh, I'm happy to do so, as that one from Alan is coming up right now, and I just placed it here. As Alan is a very hardcore follower of our show and is always engaged, so it would be nice if we have an answer on that.
Yeah. Hello, Alan. I know Alan. Yeah. So I think one way to do it is with this kind of retrieval augmented generation, right? So basically, if you go to the new Bing search or even the new Google search has some of these. When you search for something, it gives you a kind of a GPT-like answer, but it gives you citations, right? It gives you kind of references that you could actually go and that's actually done with this retrieval augmented generation. So Microsoft's doing it, right? Actually, everybody who does any, I would say, fact-based Q&A for against their knowledge base probably use this kind of mechanism, and it's actually fairly decent, I would say. It works pretty well. I mean, in the sense that if your search, whatever search mechanism they use, it could be enterprise search or any search, any information retrieval technology that you use, right? If you cannot find anything, then you should just tell the user, that there's no answer, right? Because the information retrieval did not find anything, right? So you don't give it to ChatGPT. Right? We give it to ChatGPT. If you give the question to ChatGPT, the ChatGPT will actually try to answer it, and sometimes you can actually answer it too creatively that you created fake answers, right? So for fact-based application, it's very important to make sure that so if you ask a question and you want facts, you want the answer to be factual, right? Then basically you want to kind of pre-prompt your ChatGPT, right? And essentially telling ChatGPT that, okay, I'm actually going to go and search a bunch of documents, and what's coming back is going to be a set of potential answers, and you are going to answer this question only from this set of document that I find. Okay, so that's the prompt that's generated on the back end. You may type a question, I don't know, whatever question that you may want to ask, like, how old is Michael Wu, something like that. So whatever that answer. So it may actually, I mean, something probably more complicated than that. You could think of an HR question or benefits question in the company or something like that, right? So you can ask something very specific, and then, but that question is not initially directly sent to GPT. If you send it directly to GPT, it could come up with hallucinated answers, right? So what you do is that you use that question, right, and use it to kind of send it first to information retrieval search, right, such as enterprise search. So you actually search for all these documents, right, and then you generate another prompt from the system level, say, and then you send this prompt to GPT saying that you are going to answer this question from the user with these set of retrieved documents, right?
Yeah.
And then ChatGPT can do that, right? So that's why that's how it's able to give you those citations, right? So if you actually they answer you, okay, so this is the answer, and this is from reference number 1, and click link to see the reference, and it's able to do that because it already did the search, right? The information retrieval has a set of documents that they give to ChatGPT, right, to use to answer your question. So that's how that's done. And actually, a lot of companies are doing that, including pros. We are doing that as well. And many other ones that I've talked to have used this mechanism to develop these, Q&A with citation, with proper citation. And the mechanism is some form of retrieval augmented generation. Basically using retrieval to generate a set of document that, and then ask ChatGPT to answer the question using this set of document that was found. And if you didn't find anything, then you tell ChatGPT, you don't give it to ChatGPT, or you just tell the answer. There's no document that can answer your question. Right? So, yeah.
Interesting way of asking questions.
Yeah.
And I was a bit stunned as I saw a research I shared with you all in the cheat sheet from Stanford University. And they did, under the utilization of the draft starting point of the European Act of Artificial Intelligence rules.
Yeah.
And there
AI
was the AI Act from the EU, and there is only one system which get at least 36 positive points out of 48 achievable ones. Within, if you go for the European Union AI Act and make it as a framework and said, these rules you have to follow. And they're interesting ones, as we discussed it in the last 2 sessions we had with you, such as energy consumption, and not only in training, but in utilizing the systems. And I have the impression they are cheating on the real amount of energy they need to make the thing work.
Yeah, it is very high. I mean, I think this is basically you're talking about like tens of thousands of the fastest GPU from NVIDIA, right? Kind of all running for I don't know 3 months or something, 3-4 months to just to train this model, right? And to actually use it, it doesn't require as much, but it's still quite substantial, like a lot higher than it would take for like a search or information retrieval kind of.
It's a lot of energy and a lot of waste heat.
Yes.
What attempts of reducing that do you see? Where does science point to?
Well, there's a lot, right? So, I mean, first of all, right, I think engineering, right, there's a lot more, I would say, parallelism can be implemented in these GPUs processing. And I think there are ways to, I think NVIDIA is already coming up with faster and more energy efficient GPUs and as we speak. And I would say that certainly in the near future, where quantum computing is become a reality, then that would just transform everything, because
How about technologies that the model builders and providers can use as well? So one of them that I'm aware of is scarification. So make the models smaller again, basically.
Yeah.
Fine-tuning is another one. So specialization basically is another one. So what do you see there?
Yeah. So I think I'm not sure if that's a very viable way forward. So when you So when you fine tune the model, right? So you retrain the model to kind of specialize in your domain, right? That's fine. But the problem is that, like, what happened when the new kind of language model came up, right? So say you refine your let's say you take, like, ChatGPT Turbo 3.5, right? So that's, and you retrain it with all your documents, and now this GPT can actually know all your content and know your product, your service, and have all the past support cases, so you know how to answer support questions and everything, right? What happened now if it comes up with GPT-4?
Okay, so now John seems to be contradicting you a bit.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Well, yeah, the bad boy of enterprise AI.
Yeah, so I think that's it's basically every time, if you choose to kind of fine tune kind of training and updating the model, right? And you basically, anytime both things, right? Whether your data change, or a new GPT version have come out, right? Then you kind of have to, either you don't use it, or the new one. If you want to leverage new one, you kind of have to retrain on it, and it's very expensive, right? I mean, I think it costs like a lot. OpenAI, like lots of money to train this model, right? In order of, like, I think tens of $1 million just to train. Not even looking at the app.
John's comment, which is very much to the one that I made about mentioning Zoom, that some vendors are not too smart to communicate how they would reality-driven train their engines with customer data, or how they could positively communicate what they would love to do. Yeah.
Well, they at least honestly did it.
Yeah. Well.
How to work with that, especially the one before. So you provide your company data to them, whoever them is. I mean, take a pick of the group of model vendors there, to improve their systems.
Yeah.
And that even probably via an intermediary. So let's take business software vendor A, or name it business software vendor S. So there are a couple of S companies around that leverage the services of some generative AI vendor, one or the other, or several of them. So now business, let's call it also S, because there are a couple of S company in the German stock market as well. So this business uses its own data to provide viable services to their customers, using their customers and the generative AI server, or the AI services of somebody else. And they don't have any control about how this other company uses this. Unless probably they better have some contractual, well, both vendors probably have some contractual obligations, so that at least there's some common framework, but there's no control whatsoever. So, but in a sense, customer business, pay for them to get better, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but not only with my money, but also with my data. This is crazy.
Intellectual property.
Yeah. So I think there are some economists are saying that, in the future, maybe AI should be owned by, everyone. It's not any AI just trained with everybody's data is owned by everyone. It's not owned by a company or anything. So it's a radical thought. I mean, I think it's definitely not easy.
Hard to implement.
Realize something like that. Yeah. Marshall, you think?
I think just seems very hard to implement.
Yeah.
Everybody own the Unimind.
Well, I mean, it could be managed by a company, right? But so basically, it becomes a kind of a stock or something, like that. It basically a fraction of a company is so whatever money or value that's generated by this AI, it actually goes back to the public, rather than going to a company and to their shareholder, right? It automatically goes to the public because everyone actually owns some share of this company.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't claim Adobe to be a role model, but it seemed to be a bit more transparent what they are doing to train their engines and with what they do it, as John stated. And also I would like to share, if the system is allowing it.
No, you are deleting it all the time.
No, I'm
too many fingers on the same button.
Too many fingers.
I still counted that you are Mr. Laggard in the moment on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So
that one is a big one. The biggest
concern.
Yeah, and that
what is the biggest concern?
Let's hold on for a second, as we are well above our hour. And it's too bad that John couldn't come in earlier. Too bad, because now he really spiced up things. For the sake of time, not only yours, but also mine, because I already got the calls to when can you pick me up? Let's make that the famous last words question. Yeah. How can vendors of LLMs or other AI systems that get delivered pre-trained can be made good out of the box for enterprise use cases? What do they need to do / what do they need to avoid?
Well, I think one thing is that they need to do is actually have a good use case, right? Whether it is in marketing, automation, support, Q&A, or these type of things, right? They need to find a good use case. I think one thing that's really dangerous about generative AI is that it can be used in so many different cases that people are kind of creating this rather generic, and they're not that useful for any one case. It's actually used for all use cases. So it's no longer the use of generative AI that's going to be a differentiating factor. It's going to be the whole use case experience, the workflow around this generative AI that makes it a good enterprise kind of software. And and I think certainly having the transparency that's able to let people understand how, I would say, training it's hard, right? It's not one of those things that's, even if I tell you how it's trained, most people probably would not be able to understand it. But I wanted to at least have some transparency into understanding what goes into training, what data goes in there, and what was the energy consumed, what was the carbon footprint that's created. So all that was kind of the high level summary, right? I like to know, right? So it will help me choose. I don't want to, like I said, people need to be conscientious of the harm that they are creating by using this technology as well, right? I mean, sometimes it's like I said earlier, right? If people don't know that, hey, by driving this technology called a car, I could potentially run over people, right? And kill their horses or whatever, and damaging property, right? If people didn't know that, then it's actually they could create some harm, right? I think by making aware of the fact that hey, some people, these are the things that you're creating as well, right? In terms of the environment and everything, so let the people decide, right? I mean, I don't think we have a good answer today, but I think people are going to be able to choose for themselves today. I think if you make these things transparent.
Very wisely said and fantastic closing.
Thank you.
Nailed it.
Yes, then thanks also for the spiced up conversation that now pops up on my LinkedIn feed. and here in StreamYard. So just in time, it got in time again. It got real time again, or real enough time at least. Thanks a lot to you, Michael. We definitely need you back, and probably in combination with John. to have.
That would be
No,
a
that
very
Would
good
be
show.
something
Yeah.
real good to
Okay.
because
Happy to.
it delivers lots of expertise from different angles, which is good for
I will
all.
look the opportunity.
Yeah. So let's plan for that if John agrees as well. I'll touch base with him. Thanks also to Alan and to who else is still there and not scared away. Thanks a lot and see you next time.
And take care and come back. Bye.